In this WrestleTalk news, John Laurinaitis has been replaced backstage in WWE while investigations continue, Chris Jericho shoots on MJF, Luke's review of Raw, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
The focus of the wrestling world right now is on the ongoing investigation in WWE of Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis surrounding alleged behavior of a covered-up sexual relationship between the two executives and a former paralegal in the company. While Vince McMahon has seemingly wanted to appear as the center of attention, appearing not just on SmackDown after mere hours of the announcement that he was stepping down as CEO and chairman while the investigation was underway, but also doubling down and appearing on last night's Raw because he just can't help himself after such a positive reaction from his SmackDown appearance. The opposite can be said for John Laurinaitis. The head of talent relations was reportedly not backstage at SmackDown last week, and now he seemingly won't be around for the foreseeable, as Fightful is reporting that Laurinaitis has been placed on administrative leave and his role has been taken up by none other than Bruce Prichard. This is not the first time Prichard has held the role, with him going on record in the past on his Something to Wrestle podcast saying that he really didn't like it and prefers being a creative guy. I'm sure he's thrilled about this. It's also been pretty well reported in the past that Johnny Ace wasn't very popular among the wrestlers backstage in WWE, and Fightful Select have reaffirmed this with the reactions from those wrestlers to this news. The unanimous belief among those in the company we spoke to was that Johnny was as good as gone, with several going as far as to celebrate his impending departure. Several wrestlers were reportedly under the impression they'll never have to do business with him again. However, some were not exactly thrilled with Prichard taking the role instead, with one talent joking that Vince only knows 3 people, with another source who works backstage receiving multiple texts from talent stating that there is concern about Bruce handling both roles. As if they want time off, they have to ask the person who is effectively the filter between creative and Vince McMahon. See, Vince, someone going on administrative leave and not being around while the investigation about them is carried out is how it should actually go down, not appearing on TV, you numpty. Speaking of not appearing on TV, someone we've not seen since his work shoot, not a work, not a shoot, work shoot promo is MJF. And his former best pal in the world, Chris Jericho, has weighed in on the situation, and he's not exactly complimentary of him. Speaking with TalkSport, Jericho said, MJF is 26. He has a lot to learn. He's not as good as he thinks he is, and like I said, it really is nothing to do with me, but I'm sure he'll be back. 18 months is a long time to stay at home, and that's Tony Khan's prerogative. You're under contract. You want to stay at home? You can stay at home and not get paid, and that's what happens. We see it happen in other companies, and that's just how it goes. If you didn't expect that, then why did you sign your contract in the first place? Jericho also mentioned that he's got a year and a half left on his own AEW contract, and it's not certain that he'll re-sign when it comes to expiration time. He's just gonna see how it goes. And now, hot tag to Luke.
Thank you for your support on Patreon. Oh hi, that Danish Mark, and Shield Maiden, the Zornies. Now it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw, aka, oh man, not another injury, in about 5 minutes. The show opened with the announcement of the latest injury to plague the summer of wrestling, as Rhea Ripley of Judgment Day is on the shelf and out of her Money in the Bank match against Bianca Belair. It's a shame because it was a match that I was really looking forward to, and it felt like a big time matchup, one that was much needed for Belair following feuding with Becky Lynch for so long. Belair was the one to make the announcement and also announced a fatal 5-way match between Alexa Bliss, Liv Morgan, Asuka, Becky Lynch and Carmella, 2 of which are already in Money in the Bank, and 2 others were scheduled to face off for a spot in that Money in the Bank match, and the other one is Carmella, who hasn't had a match since April. And because it was a fatal 5-way announced in an opening segment of Monday Night Raw, it's time for Knock Knock. Who's there? Interrupting promo. Interrupting promo who? I'm gonna win tonight. Yeah, everyone got to come out and say their scripted lines, and it was about as predictable as you'd imagine. And the winner was kind of predictable too. As I mentioned earlier, everyone else in the match is already busy with something else, so Mella was the only viable option to win. But predictability isn't the issue here. I've got no issue with predictable winners in wrestling, much in the same way that I don't have issues with predictable things happening in movies and TV shows. The bigger issue for me is that Carmella versus Belair is such a step down from Bianca versus Ripley. And it's not even just a bit of a step down, it's a major step down. This has gone from Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton to Roman Reigns versus Akira Tozawa. I'm sure it'll be a fine match. I mean, bloody hell, they've had enough of them. It just feels like it's a bit of a throwaway match now. Thankfully, the Fatal 5-Way was awesome and easily the best thing on this show. Becky had the match won on a couple of occasions, but her pins were broken up, brilliantly continuing her downward spiral of not getting her one-on-one rematch for the title. And because of that, Adam Pearce announced that she'll face Asuka in the main event for that originally scheduled Money in the Bank qualifier. And then, from out of nowhere, Vince McMahon came out. Yeah, he did it again. After being branded tone deaf and embarrassing by his own employees for appearing on SmackDown the day he stepped down from his position as CEO because he's being investigated by his own board for misconduct just to pop a rating, Vince did it again here, but this time without being advertised. So we can't even say this was a ratings ploy. This is just ego stroking. But the sad thing is it's working, because once again this crowd in Nebraska applauded him, cheered him, sang his song. We're happy to see him. Well, last night I made an appearance on the Law and Crime Network podcast to talk about this situation. Check out the link in the video description to watch that. And you'd be amazed at how the outside world sees wrestling. While we look at this and say, well, that's just Vince being Vince, everyone else sees it and thinks it's insane. And they're the correct ones. This is insane. And worse still, he didn't do anything. He just announced that John Cena was coming back next week. Something we already knew, something that was advertised earlier in this broadcast. But the commentators, who were grossly fawning over Vince McMahon coming out, had to act like they'd never heard this news before, which made them look like such stupid goofballs. I hated all of this. It's gross, it's disgusting, it's stupid, it's insulting, and it makes me feel a bit icky. And bloody hell, we've not even finished covering the first hour of Raw.
Visit WrestleShop.com every day for the most stupendous in wrestling merchandise. WrestleShop.com, wrestling merch for grown-ups.
Thankfully, there isn't much else to talk about. Riddle came out to talk about losing to Roman Reigns last Friday, so he's now not allowed to challenge for the title anymore, and announced he's in a Money in the Bank qualifier where if he wins, he could face Roman for the title again. What? But like most storylines in WWE, it didn't matter anyway, as Omos beat him quickly. So Omos is in Money in the Bank, which still sounds like a horrible idea. Seth Rollins attacked Riddle after the match to set up a new feud between them. Vince McMahon enjoyed wanking to the pose down segment last week that he got Theory to do it again here, only this time it was Lashley that stood tall. Theory then booked him in a gauntlet match where Lashley beat Chad Gable, Otis, and then Theory himself to earn a US title match for Money in the Bank. This was fine, I guess. Angelo Dawkins beat Jey Uso. Got literally nothing to add there. And then we got the return of Elias. I've been pretty down on the Elias Ezekiel Kevin Owens storyline for the last few weeks, mostly because WWE clearly don't know where it's going, but this was the first time, probably since the early weeks of the feud, where it felt like something progressed. First of all, we got to see Elias and Zeke in the same shot together thanks to some really good camera trickery. And then Elias did a concert in ring with Zeke on screen to show Kevin Owens that they really are brothers. This was mad fun, and Owens' freak out about it all was just fabulous. He then challenged Elias or Ezekiel or their brother Elrod to a match next week. I still don't know where this is going, and I'm pretty sure WWE don't know what the end goal is either, but I enjoyed this segment. Miz continued his crusade to make everyone else feel like a mid-carder by dragging AJ Styles down to his level, which ended up with Ciampa attacking Styles. What are you, Ciampa? You'd assume he's an associate of The Miz, who spent the match between AJ and Ciampa saying he's never had a conversation with the former NXT champion in his life. I guess we'll get some big reveal that Ciampa is just a hired gun for The Miz, which is a decent enough character for him, but we need to get to that point quickly. We also need to give Ciampa some wins, because I don't think he's won since coming to the main roster, which makes him a terrible, terrible hired gun. Via cut a promo on the stage and said, well, nothing. And then Becky Lynch and Asuka had another great match. I know it's a great match because I've seen them wrestle each other 6 times in the last 7 weeks, one of which was earlier in this show. They're so good together in ring, but having them wrestle again and again and again and again makes it feel less special. Asuka won and qualified for Money in the Bank, which is the right decision as it's good for Becky's character. So that was this week's Raw, and bloody hell, this feels like the B show to SmackDown, doesn't it? Remember back in the early, mid, and late 2000s and well, actually a lot of the 2010s, when SmackDown was such a secondary show to Raw, where it was basically pointless watching SmackDown. That's what Raw feels like now. Only Raw doesn't even have a world title for people to work towards. They kept showing the video of Brock Lesnar returning to face Roman Reigns, but neither of them are on this show, making Raw feel so unimportant. And when your show is 3 hours long, and I cannot stress that enough, 3 hours long, it makes it drag so much more than it usually does. This week's Raw is 2 out of 5. Now I know you're all excited for the Denise Salcedo hosted Quizzlemania tomorrow on Parts Unknown. It's either going to be the best Quizzlemania ever or an absolute train wreck. I've been asked to bring toilet roll, but you can get yourself involved with Fan Quizzlemania this Thursday with host Randy Andy Datson and special guest host Sullivan Bo Brown. Head on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk for more information. Going into last Friday's SmackDown, most people expected Vince McMahon appearing on the show during an ongoing investigation would be the most talked about thing from the episode. But the closing angle that saw the return of Brock Lesnar was on the lips of most wrestling fans, and those lips were saying,